Hello and welcome to Aetheryte Radio, Gamerscape's Final Fantasy XIV podcast. I'm Fusion X. Joining me today, we have Zenidra, we have Aldino, and joining us from Pheonix Down Radio, we have Klauss.
Hey, how's it going?
So 10 years. This is our 10-year anniversary show. We've been around since 10 years ago, because like that. People are like, well, wait a minute. They're like counting the numbers, right? This is the 6th anniversary for Final Fantasy XIV. That's not right. It's the 6th anniversary for Realm Reborn, but that's not. Even if you go back to 1.0, the game wasn't out. That's right, because we started podcasting before the game was even out, because we're crazy like that. So
imagine how difficult it is to podcast with no news.
We had a whole episode that was based off of like a Famitsu magazine that talked about guild leaves. We talked about this new up-and-coming amazing quest system called Guild Leaves 10 years ago.
I remember that episode, actually.
That was that's what we talked about back then. Guild leaves. Remember Guild leaves? I remember Guild.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I was trying to figure out how long I've been on. Don't know. Still looking it up. But I was part of one of the first shows. The RP show.
We had a whole network of shows planned. It was going to be great. And then 1.0, 1.0'd, and
yeah, it certainly did a thing.
What you gonna do?
So today, the bulk of the episode, we're going to talk about content creation. We felt that was kind of a fitting topic given the anniversary show. But we do also have some news that we want to go over real quick. This past week, Gamescom, I think Gamescom actually just finished up.
Yeah.
There was an interview with Twinfinite where Yoshida talked about further breaking the barriers between servers and allowing players across data centers to play with each other. However, there was a mention that there's no guarantee that they can do it, but they have some ideas that they're working on. So after World Visit, it's been this progression since Realm Reborn. They keep kind of breaking down these barriers, right, as the thing says. So everyone's been kind of wondering, how far are they going to take this? Well, they want to take it, they want to get rid of data centers being an obstruction. So whether or not they're able to figure that out or not, we'll have to see. But that's definitely not going to be an easy task. So
but other games have done it, so not impossible.
Yeah.
It's really how they want to do it, because if they just want to do a world visit across data centers, that's much easier than a single shard type thing, which is just frankly impossible probably for them to implement at this point.
Yeah.
But the world visit across data centers, probably.
So really they just need to untangle the pile of spaghetti? If you think about noodles, that's a little bit easier said than done.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it happening in the localized data centers, being able to do Crystal, Aether, and Primal, potentially, and then the Japanese and the European ones. But getting somebody to be able to go visit one of the other locations may be a little bit more difficult, but
that's what they want to do. So
a lot of data that has to get pushed through the wires for you to be able to get
a lot of data that has to be. I mean, it's the real-time aspect of it, and then it's the transferring of your character information and everything that goes with that, your inventory and all that stuff. So there's a lot there. So I don't know.
Yoshida has said that that amount of data that we have with our character has been the biggest limiting factor when it comes to being able to implement different technologies within the game. So if we want more inventory space, it's going to be more data that has to be able to travel with us.
Yeah.
So what do we want?
And at some point, I mean, there's only so much they can do with the engine too. With the way that they kind of cobbled it together for 2.0 launch, there's been small tweaks here and there. But even Yoshida has said, especially in regards to graphics, he's like, yeah, so our graphics pipeline is 2 generations old, but we still kind of cheat it, somehow to make it look like it's maybe not as old as it is. But it's, we're getting to the point where graphically, technologically, there are restrictions. I mean, that's one of the reasons they dropped PS3 after Heaven's Word was it's just there's stuff we want to do that PS3 can't do. So, so hopefully they can figure that out.
And they want to get this game on Switch.
Goodness.
I mean, it would be amazing, don't get me wrong, but I'm not sure that it can handle it and then still be able to keep up with all the latest technology.
No, I mean, I saw a few weeks ago, DC Universe Online launched on the Switch, and I was like, Oh, like I didn't even know it was still around.
Yeah.
But now it's on Switch, so I'm curious, but I don't know if I'll actually get around to trying that or not.
Mhm.
The Rising for this year has been announced. It's going to start this coming week here on the 26th.
Monday.
And you'll be able to earn. I like the rewards from this year. It's posters of the key art from Stormblood and the 4.0 patch series. As well, you'll be able to earn a brave new Y'shtola minion, which is basically just Y'shtola in her Shadowbringer's costume. So keep an eye out for that. You know, it's funny, they announced this and they're like, oh, and you get the posters. And I'm like looking around my room. I'm like, okay, well, because they also did at events during Stormblood, they would actually give out the patch artwork, the key art as posters. So I have a few of them just kind of like around. I'm like, I already have these. Like,
So yeah, for me, it's like, oh, well, now I don't have to worry about where I'm going to put all this nerd stuff in my house. So I can just put it up in my fake nerd house.
Exactly.
Much cheaper too.
Yeah.
yeah, you don't need to frame them and
True.
Shipping.
right, yeah. PAX West is coming up this coming weekend. If you're going to be in the Seattle area, if you're going to PAX West, you'll be able to go over to the SE booth and take the Titania Battle Challenge. Titania. I keep saying Titania.
It is Titania.
Titania.
It's
Tradition-
Titania.
Traditionally, in like Fey lore, it's Titania.
Yeah. Like Shakespearean, I believe,
Yeah.
is Titania as well. But
Yeah.
I don't.
Tomato, tomato.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just
Doesn't
like
matter.
overall.
Just so don't say Twin Tanya.
Yeah.
Twin Tanya, definitely.
No,
not.
that's the other one.
That's definitely flip-flopped in my brain a couple of times. Like, dragon? No, fairy.
I hadn't
Okay.
even thought about it until you said that. Now that's going to drive me nuts.
Let's hope that
you're
we
welcome.
never have Eden make Twin Tanya and we confuse it with Titania.
Titan. Oh, God. I feel
there's
like
too many that are close.
You know
Just
those
all-
things where they like cross the Pokemon and you get some weird new creature?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like they need to do that with the combinations of the different Titan creatures now.
Yeah. I can see it now.
Not it, but
Titania
somebody, please get on this.
Yeah.
on wheels with huge dragon wings. Please
There
look
you
forward
go.
It's not even my final form.
Yes.
to it.
Also at PAX West, there will be a panel on Sunday, September 1st. That's at 2:30 Pacific with main scenario writer Natsuko Ishikawa and art team lead Takeo Suzuki. So make sure to check that out. That should be streamed. Most of that stuff usually is. But we'll be there for that. And we'll be talking about. I'm not going to be here next week. 2 weeks. Sorry, I'm getting my schedule for September is nuts. 2 weeks from now,
What are
I won't be
days?
here. But
Yeah.
we'll be talking about the panel. And by we, I mean everybody, but not me. But next week, we are going to have our interview with Natsuko Ishikawa and Takeo Suzuki. So I'm going to be downtown Friday, back home Saturday to podcast that for you guys, and then going back downtown Sunday to do the panel. So yeah, my schedule is all sorts of crazy next weekend, but it'll be fun. Lots of cool stuff. Please look forward to it.
But that means it's like immediate. Don't have to wait for any information.
Yeah,
This
no,
is
you'll get that,
how much
like, next-
Fusion is just devoted to you guys.
Yes.
It's going to be crazy. Also, as a quick mention here, we have launched our new positions page over at gamerescape.com. We are looking for new Aetheryte radio hosts and people to help with the show. We're looking for people to write up stuff for 14, for 11, if anyone out there plays 11 still. We also want to say, too, with this news, for those that watch the show regularly, you may have noticed we haven't had somebody on for a while. Bryn has just been really busy with some real life stuff. So unfortunately, he's going to kind of take a step back for right now. And so we want to try and bring in some new faces, new voices, and kind of round out the crew we got here. So if that's something you're interested in, head on over to the website, find the post, and send in an application. And that'll take us into our discussion. We're going to talk about content creation. Ooh. Content creation. So how do we even start this? I don't know. It's there's a lot to it. And so I guess when you think about it, you have to start somewhere, right? You have to kind of think like what you want to do with your content creation. So for example, Years and years ago when I started Petfoot Alpha, which was our Final Fantasy 11 podcast. That was 13 years ago now. I'm really dating myself with the episode.
Back in my day,
right?
Exactly.
Back in my day, we didn't have Twitch. We didn't have Discord. We used forums.
That was just after YouTube.
Remember ICQ?
Yeah.
I actually do remember ICQ.
Yep.
We did a couple. It was a big deal if we did a live show.
Right.
We did it on, I think, Justin TV.
I was about to say Justin TV, probably.
Is probably what we did it on. I don't even remember, but yeah, that was a big deal. So I think that the first thing, right, when considering content creation, if it's something you're interested in, you have to figure out what you want to do with it. Pick a goal, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, if I were to say a goal, is to inform people, right? There's a lot of news out there. There's a lot of information from various sources. You have Reddit, the official forums. You have stuff on Twitter. You have interviews coming from overseas. There's a lot of stuff out there, and so to try and condense that and relay that is kind of my goal. Mm-hmm. Klauss, what kind of goals do you have for the show you do over at Pheonix Down?
Well, mainly not suck. But
That's a good goal.
Aside from that, when I first started it, and we're getting on our 4 years now, which seems really weird. It seems like we just started it. For me, it was something for me to put my time into. To be honest with you, when I started Pheonix Down Radio, I was unemployed. I was spending a lot of time outside running, and I was listening to podcasts, and it was this seemed like something that would be good for me to take this game that I really enjoy, talk about it, and then maybe share that with other people. And like I said, we're still doing it 4 years later. Yeah. We're constantly trying to make sure we're covering the news, making sure to help people who are getting into the game for the first time, or trying to, uncover some of the key aspects of lore. The world building within this game is just fantastic, and sharing that with people who are too busy doing cutscene skipping, I still don't understand that, but
I don't.
It's just, we just want to share our love for Final Fantasy 14, and make sure that people are able to enjoy it as much as we do. And we've been so far doing a pretty good job of it, I think. When we're still going, we got people listening.
Yeah, I think that says a lot. So much of the work that I think a lot of people don't realize until they start doing content creation is really how much behind the scenes goes into things. Mm-hmm. It's planning, it's prepping.
It's freaking out when your programs don't work 5 minutes before you're supposed to go live.
Yes.
Yeah.
Troubleshooting.
Right.
Troubleshooting.
Yeah, it even happens to the big guys. Look what happened at that one live letter.
Yes, exactly.
So, it nothing is perfect. Technology, Murphy's Law, it states that if it can go wrong, it will. So, making sure to test, and there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. We were sitting here talking for about 20 minutes before we went live on Twitch here, and, making sure everything's were good and just BSing. But I've had the times when I'm prepping for a show and we are sitting there and the program just isn't loading. It just isn't loading. And finally, 11th hour, we get it working. But, it takes a lot of time, patience, knowledge of your programs or whatever, and a lot of luck.
Yeah. Sometimes for no reason, somebody's mic doesn't work. And you go through everything and you just can't fix it. And then you restart your computer and it's fine.
Yeah, it's that's the issue we've actually had the last couple of weeks, where normally I'm the one streaming everything and running, the operation of the show. But for the last couple of weeks, for whatever reason, I hit that go live button and I get that little error pop up. It's just no. For what? I don't know why. I'll test, the day before the show. I'll be like, all right, let's load up the game and stream. Works fine. and then we get ready for the show and it's just no.
Nah.
So,
don't feel like it.
A lot of patience. So with that, we talked about prepping and kind of behind the scenes stuff, developing ideas, because you start off with your goal, what you want to do, but then you need to find a way to do that, to convey your message or whatever it is you want. And so I know we've had a few times where we've gotten together off stream and kind of just tried to brainstorm some stuff. The Inside the Creator Studio segment we did with Frosty a little while back, that was something that kind of came out of that. And it was something that we had thought of a while ago, but it took a while to develop and make sure that, the questions that we had that were good, and,
other creators were interested in coming on and talking about their stuff. Even that.
I mean, that's the other thing too. I mean, you have to, if you want to do stuff with guests or the audience, they need to be wanting to do that. Yes. And that's not always an easy thing as well.
Scheduling too is a crazy thing. Like last week, when it was just going to be Aldino and I think I reached out to like 3 or 4 people before I got a person who could actually come on, because a lot of people are just busy, especially on a Saturday when we do this. Yeah, because they're doing their stuff at the same time.
Right, and I mean that can be tricky too with especially working with other content creators too, because they have their own things, and so there's a lot of exactly. There's a lot of that. I was just about to do the hand thing.
Let me check my calendar.
But yeah, so I'm curious, Klauss, for you guys, when you have an idea, how do you kind of develop that into something that comes out onto the show?
That's an interesting question. A lot of times it just pops into my mind, to be 100% honest with you. Most of the shows, they kind of they come out because of what's happening within the game. We've been focusing a lot the last few episodes on telling the story. We've been spoiling Shadowbringers. Yeah. But in those content droughts, that's when you really have to go back and think, what is something that's going to keep people coming back to us for information? And that's when we think about doing lore specials. We did a series on the 12 back a couple of years ago, and spent a segment talking about each one of the 12 Eorzean deities. We've got another co-host now, Talaz, who is a chef in real life, so we're looking at doing some culinarian type things, tying in things within the game with real life recipes, things like that. I mean, it's just trying to come up with things that not everybody else is doing, or maybe you hear something that another podcaster is doing, or you see a video and you think, how can I spin that just a little bit differently and make it something that we can use?
Use your strengths to do that in your own way. It's kind of there's ideas that float out around there, and people are like, should I do it or should I not? If you have your own spin on it, you should.
I mean, the biggest thing is trying not to be like everybody else. You try to put your own spin on it is probably the toughest thing. I mean, it's really easy to copy somebody else, but it's really difficult to make something your own.
Right.
That said, don't be afraid if you see something else that somebody's doing that you like, to take the concept and run with it. Just by virtue of you being a different person, you will probably have a different perspective on it, and people will often look for the same kind of content with a different perspective. So don't be afraid to do something that someone else is doing, but like he said, with your own spin.
Right. I mean, chances are really good that regardless, like if you see somebody making guides, for example, and you're like, I could do that a little better, I think, it's your way of saying, like, it doesn't cater to what I would want in a guide, so that's already your own spin on it, right? Even if you're like, well,
absolutely,
and it's your personality is going to come through no matter what you do. But it's important to whatever you want to do. It's something that you need to enjoy, something you need to be passionate about, because it'll show if you're not. I can remember, getting my retail graveyard job back when we were still doing PFA, and boy, did that come across hard on the show, because I wasn't up as late as I used to be. I didn't do a lot of as many group things as I used to, and I was just tired and kind of sour about a lot of stuff, and that wasn't really good for the show.
Motivation is a huge factor. So you have to be doing something you like. Because you're going to be doing it. If you want to be successful with it, you're going to be doing it a lot.
Yep. One of the biggest things that I tell myself is when I stop having fun creating podcasts or streaming on Twitch, I'm done. Because I don't want to make people think that I'm doing this just for views, just for money, just for whatever.
Right? You don't need it.
In fact, we don't make much money doing this at all. It's a labor of love. We do this because we really enjoy it, and
it makes the community very rich. I feel just that so many people come up with something and put it out there, and it just makes the community feel more warm.
Yes, I mean, there are jokes. I mean, if you go to certain subreddits, that talk about great community, by the way. But realistically, the Final Fantasy XIV community is one of the most welcoming, open, and helpful communities within the multiplayer game universe.
And I think a lot of that is because of the passion of the content creators that help to occupy that space. I mean, granted, there have been a few. I won't go into naming, right? But there's been some people that have come and gone that were definitely looking to get on the hype train, right, and just try and make a quick buck here and there. And they're not around anymore, thankfully. But it's mostly, if not, it's like 99% that community. It's all people that are passionate about the game, and that really matters. At the end of the day, that's the biggest thing that you're passionate about it. So moving,
just one last thing. I think it's an interesting dynamic between the content creators and like the devs, because they get excited about what they're doing, and then we're excited about what they're doing, and so we do something, and then they in turn see what we're doing and are like, people love this, let's make it even better. So it's like a nice game of awesome ping pong.
It's a feedback loop.
Yeah. I mean, and that's definitely
it's a
something.
Positive echo chamber.
Yeah, exactly.
That's something. I mean, from an 11 background, we didn't have that quite as much back in my day, right? But now it's you'll have people, you'll have a Stage Reborn doing in-game plays, and they'll be like, all right, we added stage furniture pieces, or you'll have people posting a lot of screenshots. Okay, we'll add even more features to G-Pose. When you thought we couldn't add more to G-Pose, here you go. And it's interesting. I mean, it's one of those things, Big Brother is always watching, right? No matter, if there's somebody over at the building and at SE just watching social media, watching the forums, watching Reddit, and all that stuff for whenever people are doing stuff. And I mean, and especially now, like they have their community commendations on Duty Commenced that they do, artwork, or they'll even show videos now. They're always watching it, and there's all that stuff is getting back to the devs in one way or another. And so it's really cool to be able to see that kind of stuff. Even if they don't say it, right, they're like, hey, so like here's like stage furniture pieces, because like if you're talking, if you're involved in the community, right, about a Stage Reborn, that's why they added those.
By the way, all of these are tabletop.
More than we can say for the loft. Or actually, no, the loft is tabletop, but it can't have other furniture on it. That's what it was. You can't
like put your couch on it or something.
Yeah.
I don't want my couch on my loft, damn it.
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, you can, but not naturally.
Yeah, not easily.
Those lofts are why I docked a point for my review score for that patch.
The truth comes out.
I mean, I think I said it when we did the review, but yeah. Fun fact.
He's like, I'm not afraid. I'll back it up.
Right? Lofts suck. I want to bet on a loft. Why can't I put a futon on a loft? The loft for futons. Like, come on. So, we talked a little bit about having passion and enjoying the game and stuff. So when you create your content, Klauss, what are some of the tools that you have at your disposal that you frequently go to make your show?
Well, I would say the number one tool that I use is going to be Audacity. Love that tool. I mean, I was able to get in on the Humble bundle that had all of the sound editing stuff. I still use Audacity just because it's that easy to use. And what's great about content creation is a lot of the tools that we use are available for free.
Right.
Yeah.
Or there's some form of a free tool that can be used. Like I use OBS for the streaming, and I actually utilize the recording capabilities of that as well to put up on YouTube.
Right.
And then I rip the audio out of that using VLC, edit it using Audacity, upload it using FileZilla, and boom, we have an episode.
Yeah.
It's easy. I say it's easy, but it took a lot of time for me to get that process down.
Oh yeah.
But now you're like, boom, 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 10 minutes, here you go.
I mean, I have the new episode up from when I hit stop recording and stop streaming to when it's up and out on the website, less than an hour.
There you go.
Yeah. It's very important to build that pipeline out of tools that you know, and that you are familiar with. All the kind of stupid stuff that can go wrong, because let's face it, it's going to go wrong at some point, like we were talking about. Being able to have that pipeline in place and fix the things that might come up. I mean, that's how you get these quick, like, oh yeah, I can get it up there in an hour. Like, that's because you've done it.
Yep.
It's like it didn't just happen.
It took a lot of trial and error. I remember, I think it was the second episode we ever did. I happened to have to go up to the hospital. My dad was in the hospital at the time, so I went up to visit him. I brought my laptop with me, and I probably spent about 2.5 to 3 hours just editing the audio portion of it. I wanted it right. I wanted to make it sound good. But now I realize that everything I was doing can be automated within the tool. It's just learning how to use what's available for you in that. And one thing I want to kind of plug something we did earlier this year. I was at a gaming and anime convention back in March, and I had done a panel. It's called "So You Want to Be a Podcaster." We talked about a lot of this stuff, the tools that you use, how you get involved with it. You can always check out our YouTube page, and I'll maybe talk about that later. Yeah. So if you want to learn more about that, so.
Yeah, and I think too, I think Aldo, you made the point of using software that you're familiar with, but at the same time, I think it also depends on what you want to do.
Sure.
Because there's so many different types of content creation as well. You could just write for a blog. You could do video guides. You could do text guides with images. You could do a podcast. You could do a podcast that's also a live stream on Twitch. I mean, there's so many different things. I mean, you could do, a cooking video, right? And so I think naturally, for a lot of that, it's going to be whatever you want to do. It's probably in part you want to do that because a little bit about how you, but I think it's also important too, like if you want to do, some kind of video content, if you're not familiar with video, don't be discouraged by that, right? I mean, use it as a learning opportunity for sure.
Absolutely.
And how else do you get the familiarity?
Right.
Trying,
It could also lead into, I don't want to say a career, but a different career. You try something new you've never tried before. You're like, oh, I really like this. And you could take that really far.
Yeah, that came up with Frosty when we were talking to him, because he was saying that, I made this world first website, and it kind of made me get into web development, and now I'm kind of learning that, like, you never know.
Yeah, and I think it's important too to not be discouraged. I mean, we're sitting here talking about how it's taking hours to edit, the first episodes that we do, and that's how it's going to be. It's when you start off, you're going to, I mean, not that there's anything wrong with it, right? But you're going to have this kind of perfectionist vibe to things, and then a few years down the road, if you're still doing it, you'll be like, like whatever, it's good, it's fine. But some of that is because there are a lot of these programs, there are options to help kind of automate some of the adjustments and stuff that you would normally make. So it does become easier, but you also still have to get to the point where you set that stuff up and you spend the time and you the knowledge and all that kind of stuff to get to that point. But definitely don't be discouraged, but you definitely have to have that motivation to keep going.
Yeah, don't let my little story, discourage you from that. Those 2-3 hours were spent lovingly editing the podcast. Yeah. So,
I mean, I still remember editing the first handful of episodes of this show that we did. I mean, because we had Nate from LBR, now Checkpoint, helping the show, and I think I'm trying to remember if he edited or I edited. We may have shared editing duties a little bit, but it's one of these things where you want it to be perfect, right? And so you'll go through and you'll edit out every little gap of silence, just keep it going, or I did that once, and I also went back and like edited out the ums, and it took forever.
No.
She gets it. She's like, why would you do that?
I was the person. Actually, I edit this one now too, but I was the person who edited the roleplay show that we used to have, and the people we used to be. You couldn't curse. The people that I streamed with were incapable of not cursing. Yeah. So I had to sit there and listen to the whole episode, which was usually at least an hour, and edit a little bleep in every time there was. And like Fusion said, I would take out the spaces. Sometimes I would take out the ums. Sometimes if somebody was like, hold on, I have to go, and I have to listen to the end of that and find that and take that out and shove it all back together. And that took a long time because I was listening to the whole episode. I'm glad we are explicit on this podcast now, because I really don't have to edit anything.
Yeah.
I have a template in not Premiere, Adobe Audition, and I just take out the old episode and put in the new one with the opening and the ending, adjust them a little bit, make sure that the sounds match up, and export.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember back before Twitch really picked up. I mean, we would do just, use like something like Skype, and then just talk on that. And then I can always remember having a pad of paper next to me, watching the recording and the timing. Anytime somebody said something they didn't, or if there was some weird background noise or somebody had to AFK real quick, and I would just, I'd come out of an episode with just this list of like, these are the things we need to go back and change while editing. And it was crazy. But now with Twitch and how popular, that's become, especially with doing shows live, it's editing has, not to say that it's not still important, but I think at least from my perspective, I think it's something that we don't spend as much time on as we used to, because the show is already out. Like for example, this episode right now, it's live right now. People can watch it now. As soon as we're done, people can go back and watch it immediately. They can always, wait a few days and get the audio, and it might sound a little better, but is it going to be that much better than just getting it soon? I don't think that the time spent to edit it down that much is justified.
Well, there's also the flip side of it is, because we have been, at least the bunch of us, we've been doing it so long, we don't we don't say as much. We don't we don't make those mistakes that
right.
Joke. But we don't make those necessarily mistakes that need to be taken out as much as we used to.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, we talked a little bit about being an explicit show now, and part of that is, I don't know if we may have mentioned it before when we changed that a few weeks back, but essentially what had happened is I went back when we kind of got into 5.0, we updated our album artwork, and so I was going through iTunes and Google Play and all these different podcast sites, making sure that the artwork was getting updated. And there was a bit in iTunes where when we originally submitted, you didn't have to specify if it was explicit or clean. But now it's clean is like really clean. Clean is like, 50 sitcom language clean. Like it's really like pretty strict. And if you break that, that's it. Like all you need is to have Ethos on once and you're done. You know what I mean? Like
I was wondering if you were going to call him out.
Yeah.
I got to call the Aussie out for swearing. Yes.
For us, it was actually Callie.
Oh yeah.
and so at that point it's like, well, yeah, I mean, we've had a few slip, and it's never been like explicitly explicit, right? It's never been just like, swears after swear. But it's like, all right, well, we'll do that, and then we still don't really swear at all anyway. But if we get a guest or something slips, it's not the end of the world then, and so that's fine. And so that's always important too, I think, when creating your content. It's what your audience is. You have to look at what you're doing, what your goal is, and then and it kind of goes in with your goal too. It's who do you want to reach? And so I think with that also comes the tone. I think is really important when you're doing anything. It's, are you don't care and you're just going to swear left and right and whatever, or are you going to try and technically, right, the player base for an online game like Final Fantasy 14 is 13 and up.
Mm-hmm.
So do you cater to whoever you want? Do you try and cater to that 13 and up market? Do you go to that, the lowest denominator, right? And that's always, I think, kind of been where I've seen us trying to be, is because we want to be a show for anybody that could be playing. And there could be some 13-year-olds. I mean, there could be some people under 13 that are playing that probably shouldn't, right? Mm-hmm. According to TMS, but that's a whole other thing. But
when
it's
I've
always...
gotten... go ahead. Okay.
Go ahead.
When I've gotten people on, I give them the rundown at the beginning. It's like, don't say the F word. I mean, you can. Try not to. Try and think of it like it's a show that we want for adults to be able to listen to in the car with their child.
Yeah.
With their 5-year-old. So don't say anything you wouldn't want a 5-year-old to hear.
Yeah. So,
if you do, it's no big deal, but
use when talking to your grandmother if your grandma's not from Jersey or something, right? From the East Coast.
I'm interested to hear your perspective on it, Klauss. Where do you sit?
We, like I said, first 12 episodes of us, we were clean. And then we had Callie from Limit Break Radio / Checkpoint Radio on. Yeah. And at that point, it's like, you know what? We worked really hard to try and be clean, but you know what? It didn't really seem like us. So we kind of let the filter go. And we've been explicit since.
I hear that.
We're not, like I said, we're like you guys. We don't swear all the time, but we do let some F-bombs go. And we're a little bit later at night. The way I see it, our show is more towards, the 20, 30, 40 something gamers who really want to relive some of their past glory in Final Fantasy. We focus, like I said, mainly on 14, but we try and cover a lot of the news within the Final Fantasy universe.
Yeah.
So, a lot of those players are going to be quite a bit older than, the teens and early 20-somethings that do a lot of the MMOs nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I just do what Fusion says. If this was my show, then I would probably be saying the F word every 3 words. But
I remember a couple of months back when I was using a different mic for a few weeks, and it started to have issues, and we were getting ready, beginning of one episode, and it just didn't work at all. And I just remember right as we were getting ready, I was just I'm like, son of a motherfucker, all this stuff, and he was just looking at me
yeah.
Because I've been the one. I'm like, let's try not to curse, guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't use that mic anymore. It was a nostalgia thing. It was actually my first mic that I had, and I found it while cleaning. Yeah. I had the little mixer box and everything for it. I'm like, yeah, I'll bust this out. Sure. I was feeling nostalgic. Worked for one episode.
Is there probably a reason why you replaced it?
Not really. I mean, it was just that I didn't need the extra box when I got my Blue Yeti. So it was an XLR mic.
Having a huge box on my desk now for it.
Yeah, I used to actually have a little mixer with it back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Good old analog.
See you though as the little cinnamon bun, no drinking, no cursing, etc., etc. And it was oh. Have you had a bad day, my friend?
Right? Yeah, it's one of the, and that might be worth something talking about too. I mean, and I think it's not a perspective that a lot of people are going to have, right? It's that idea of going from this kind of small fan site into this bigger, more preferably professional type of situation, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why I kind of tried to set it up that, all audiences, no excessive cursing and all that stuff, because, from a small fan site, there's I don't want to say an expectation, right? But I think there's maybe more leeway, right? With maybe how certain things are done. But then you have, you go up to this bigger site like Gamer Escape, right? In case people didn't understand where I was going with this. And then it's oh, okay, maybe we should try and be a little more professional about everything, and that doesn't always work well either, because you also don't want to be so. And this is an issue I've had too. And I think Zenidra will just like sit here and nod this whole time. It's because of that you have this kind of added weight to it where you are a little more wound up about things.
Sure.
And you want to make sure that everything is friendly and professional, and it's you can't.
Fusion needs a spa day. Let's put it that way.
yeah, right. It's that that expectation, and especially I think I said it for myself. It's that. Like, you don't want to spend after doing this for so long, you don't want to, spend 5 hours editing things, but you still want it to like kind of be perfect, but you also don't want to put the time to make it perfect. And it's that weird back and forth. Yeah, definitely.
You're getting to that point where you're almost like an IGN kind of thing where you need to be, but you don't have the manpower to keep it at that high level. And you don't want to be full NPR either.
Right. By the way, we're looking for Aetheryte Radio Hub.
If you didn't hear earlier.
Right? Yeah, we're looking for people.
Just send your audition tape too.
Right? Yo box. So kind of leaning into that, I want to talk about the do's and don'ts of content creation. And something that, one of the reasons I thought about this topic for this week was earlier last week. There was a thread on Reddit, as there usually is.
Yeah.
Is that what Reddit's for?
Right? Saying, I liked this person's guides. And all of a sudden, you have people coming in like, yeah, their guides are great. And then you also have the majority of the comments are coming in like, oh, their guides are terrible. I use this person's guides instead. They're not this person's guides. And it's crazy, the amount of negativity. And, they would come in and bash a content creator that wasn't even in the OP, right, of this thread. Yeah. Just because they could, or for whatever reason.
Everybody wants to have something to say.
Yeah. And I think it's crazy. I mean, there could be content creators that you don't agree with, but I don't think that you should be necessarily hating on any of them either, right? Because we're all in the same community. At the end of the day,
there have been creators who are basically asking for it because there is a type of person who creates content that is basically like air horns on the radio. They're begging for people to come back and fight with them, and that's one sort of creator. Which, if that's what they want to do, then have at. That's your niche.
Important in that regard, right? There are definitely certain like niches in the community, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You have Limit Break Radio is a great example.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was like, are you talking about Limit Break Radio?
Right. I don't want to name names, but Limit Break Radio. They definitely had that kind of Howard Stern. Yeah. There was another show. Opie and Anthony is one that Nate talked a lot about. And they had a group of people that loved to listen to it. So that's great.
It was their entertainment. I mean, Nate and then the crew, they weren't seriously like that. They did it because they were having fun doing it.
Yeah.
And they'd still be doing it if they weren't doing Checkpoint XP.
Exactly.
And so I think it's important. And so, I say we're part of the same community, but there's also niches, right? So you have that kind of content, but at the same time, we're all here because of 14, right? It's that kind of umbrella over these other smaller communities. So at the end of the day, like, we're all in this together, And so to see something like a thread like that, where it's someone's like, hey, I really like this content creator, and then everyone else is jumping in like, oh, this content creator is better. I don't like that content creator. At least it's not this other content creator that's even worse. Like, it's just...
There's a correct way to respond to each type of content. And that's sort of what I was getting at. Like, the people who come out there and air horn you in the face, they expect to be fought with. But other people who are just putting out guides to try and help the community, to have someone turn around and be like, I hate your guide, it's not constructive. Be like, hey, this part of your guide is confusing to me, or could you try to do blah, blah, blah. That constructive criticism is much different than I hate this, or this is bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to come on to a forum thread around social media or, YouTube comments. Like, oh, this thing sucks that you put all this time into. like, if that's how you feel about something that you've seen, just don't say anything. Like, if you can't be constructive about it, like, why spend that time being hateful? Because at the end of the day, like, everybody that's doing this kind of stuff is, we're all human, right? And some of us, yes, there's that saying, right? You just need a thicker skin. Well, people could just not be assholes either, right? Like, that was something I tweeted earlier.
It's the thumper method. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all.
Right. And so it's what, regardless of how thick your skin is, at some point, one of those kinds of comments is really going to dig in deep. And it's, it doesn't matter who you are, it's going to happen. And so if we could just like avoid that, that would be great. I don't think we're ever going to get to a point where we are avoiding that. We're not seeing that stuff. But when talking about other content creators as a content creator, I think it's really important to never really try and paint them in a bad light. Not to be, explicitly negative, right? It's
absolutely
if it's bad, try not to talk about it at all. Like, I mean, you could, you run your content. You can decide what you do and do not want to talk about. And then the other thing, kind of along those lines, is what happens when drama happens in the community? Do you throw in your 2 cents? Do you avoid it?
Sounds like you have an opinion on this one.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of that in the past, and I'm not going to name any names either, but it's one of those things where something happened, it came out in the community, and there were people who did it the right way. They mentioned it, they didn't go on with it. Then there are the people who just kept pushing and pushing, and they were calling for witch hunts, and they were trying to do this and that, and it made the entire situation, while ugly, it made it even worse, and nobody came out in a good light in that situation. I think a lot of you guys know which one I'm talking about.
Oh no, yeah, and there's been a few different instances where I'll fully admit, like, I got too involved in the things that I probably should have just kind of let go by the wayside and just be like, all right, see you later, drama.
We generally try to avoid it on Pheonix Down Radio personally. Like I said, if it's important enough and it ends up being something that we can hopefully learn from, we'll talk about it. But
if
when it's
hurting
the ugly
somebody, and I don't mean like oh, my feelings are hurt. I mean, if it is actually hurting somebody financially, physically, actual real. I can't remember what it's called.
Consequences.
Slander. If it's like real slander and libel and such, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, and if we talk about stuff like that and it ends up coming out that it was all, fake or, slanderous, it could come back on us too. So we really need to be careful as to what messages we're pushing out there. We need to make sure that whatever sources we're citing or quoting, we need to make sure that it's all legitimate.
Yeah.
We can't just go with the latest gossip. So it's really tough. I mean, the smaller content creators can get away with it sometimes, but still, it's always best to be cautious when dealing with things that are questionable and just in dramatic nature.
I think it kind of, in a lot of cases, makes your audience feel safer too, because your audience wants to support you and they want to support something that isn't terrible. That isn't a trash heap.
Right, like if they tune into one of our shows one day and all of a sudden we're like the National Enquirer, they might be like, I don't know why I'm listening to this show anymore.
Is Batboy in Eorzea?
I was thinking Batboy.
Oh my gosh.
I can't not think Batboy. Like back when I was a kid, like when I saw Batboy on a magazine, it would terrify me.
I remember,
No, I'm serious.
This line at the grocery store and you see pictures of Batboy.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you.
That also dates us a little bit too.
I mean, this whole episode is about dating us, right?
Right.
And I'm not talking like in a weird like visual novel sense. I'm talking like in a weird old. What's that?
I said, could we have one? I mean,
No.
there's
anybody out there know what's the engine for that Renpy? Is that the
something like that.
engine? Yeah,
I'm leaving.
Let's do it. Like
Final Fantasy 14 content creators visual novel. It'll work just fine.
Oh no.
Yeah, no. Speaking of drama.
So you have a button and so do I.
No.
Oh yeah.
Gosh. So another thing I wanted to talk a little bit about too is handling feedback, right? Because we talked a little bit about drama and people just kind of all the negativity that can come with content creation. So Klauss, what's like? Can you talk a little bit about if you have any negative feedback or things that you've seen that maybe you took from and maybe improved the show because of that comment, or something along those lines?
I know we're constantly asking for feedback. As a content creator, we need feedback, because otherwise, if we don't hear anything, we kind of assume no news is good news, and we keep on the same path, even if it ends up leading to our demise. But with that being said, we want to know what you guys think of our show. We want to know, is there something that we can do to change? And the hardest part is actually getting people to do that.
Right.
Yes.
And there are so many ways it can be done, even, through iTunes, through emails, through tweets, things like that. But I think there are a lot of people, at least that listen to our show, maybe they may either fall under the whole thing where they like it, so they just want to keep more of it. They're the kind of the silent type that just enjoy what we're doing.
Majority. Yeah.
And we don't really have too many people who are really upset with us or think that we're doing a terrible job at it, and they're vocally ripping us apart. So we don't really see that. Though I will say, one of the last iTunes comments we did receive, I was a little bit I didn't really want to read it or address it, because it talks about somebody who is a very good friend of mine. We recently had to say goodbye to Chili on our show. He's focusing more on Move Go Round and his PlayStation podcast. Right. But this comment had said that they love the show, especially the ones without Chili, because he sounds like I don't even remember what the phrase that they used was, but it was, I read it to Chili and he laughed. So it's knowing your, the people that you're dealing with. I don't like hurting people's feelings. I'm just one of those people. But with that being said, I do want to hear feedback from people, I guess. I kind of skirted your entire question.
still relevant conversation.
And I'll say, I think that's one of the things that surprises me the most. And I think a lot of it is just because of kind of the times and the evolution of the way that podcasts are done now. But back when we used to do our 11 show, we got a bunch of emails. We had a whole segment devoted to emails that we would do in just about every show, because we had stuff to fill that spot. I couldn't tell you the last time we got an email for Aetheryte Radio, to be completely honest with you.
Okay, I found the comment. I have to read it here. He is the manner of a maladjusted toddler, and I cringe every time he shrieks into his low-quality microphone.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was written rather harshly.
Yeah.
Wow.
But, so it's not something that I would, put onto the show, but on a daily stream when Chili was joining me in the audience, I read it to him and he laughed. So Chili is one of the most laid back people, if you're not familiar with who he is. He is the cinnamon roll of this community. He is just so precious and he loves everybody.
He's such a nice guy. We had him on once at least, I think. Right? Yeah,
he's been on the show and he is very distinctive. You will know Chili.
Yeah.
But that's why because he is so nice and amazing, I suppose I took the role of being the protector in that case, because I didn't want him to, because you don't want to corrupt the poor Chili.
Pure. You don't want to hurt that at all.
But that's a very good
really
skill.
Knew him, though.
Yeah. It's a very good skill to have, to just be able to look at something straight up mean that someone says, and be like, all right, that's your opinion. Cool.
Yeah.
Most of the time, every now and then, I will look at our YouTube comments, because I'm the one who posts up the YouTube videos now.
Yeah.
And sometimes mostly recently at least, they've just been about what we've been saying. People either agreeing or disagreeing, and for the most part, not in a mean way. So thank you. Cool, awesome. I'm glad you enjoy and are participating in the discussion. Let's say probably like 6 months ago, all of the comments were about me. That girl was annoying. And I'm like, you know what? I was annoying on that episode. So it was we were going over a question and answer session, and we got to the point. Yes, we got to the point where it was long, and the answers were yes or no, and so it got to the point where I was like, I'm gonna guess yes, I'm gonna guess no, I'm gonna guess yes, and I was just doing that the whole time. And you know what? Some people might find that annoying. I found it fun. So
I remember that episode, and I can't remember what the Q&A was from. But it was very, very long. Yeah. And it got to the point where everything was just a yes or no answer. And so we just questioned, and then moved on because it was taking forever to get through them. And I could see how that could be taken as annoying. But at the same, it's funny. It's another one of those things where it's like, yes, this is my dedicated time to do the show. But like, this is going on way too long. Like, can we speed this up? I don't want to be here all day.
It's like the 2 hour mark, and we were looking, and we're like,
we're halfway through.
Yeah.
I've also gotten, funny enough, she interrupts too much. And you know what? I do interrupt people sometimes, but we all interrupt each other. And part of the reason that I do it personally is because when I first started on this show, I would sit there and not say anything because I was waiting very patiently for everybody to finish all of their thoughts. And then the next person would come in, and I would never get a word in. So yes, I do interrupt people. But having heard that people think I interrupt people too often, I'm trying to dial it back a little bit. So even if it's a mean comment, sometimes it's helpful.
They'll get something out of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things too where, I mean, you do this long enough, and it's, with as long as we've been doing this together, sometimes you get a good synergy going, but a lot of times it's really hard to get. Not to say that we don't do things well together, but it's that kind of internal method that you really discuss. It's not like we're all sitting here, we're like, okay, when I have something to say, I'm going to raise my hand and wait. Like we're not going to do that, but it's you have a thought, you want to say it right away, because if you wait for that person to be done,
it may not be relevant anymore.
Well, it may not be relevant. Somebody else might come in right away, or you might forget what you were going to say. It's a very real thing that happens.
Oh, it happens way too often. But you're right. The longer you work with people, the easier it is to read when they're about to finish their thought, so you can prepare to interject. But it's tough because you have to not only listen for that part, you actually have to listen to what they're saying, because they may come up with something that you then have a thought on. It may trigger another response that you have. So it's really tough to have these types of discussion podcasts where you're going back and forth on all these different ideas. But it's also some of the most amazing moments come out of those free form discussions.
Yeah. And I mean, and then you'll have somebody talking, and you're like, okay, there's just enough of a pause. I think I can get in.
Yeah.
And then keep stop going. And it's just like,
so then you're like, we did it earlier, as a matter of fact, like, no, you go.
Yeah. Or like I just did when you were talking about interrupting people. I was trying to interrupt you, and I would say a word, and you just keep going. So I would just stop.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just not going to work. And with some guests, there's latency as well. And it's like, you can't really tell when you're talking at the same time, or they can't. So
and that's going to happen. Yeah. And that's what makes it even more difficult too, is especially if you are with a group of people regularly, and then you kind of sort of, find some kind of groove, right? And then you bring on a guest, and that's out the window. or you have a guest on, and it's that situation that Znidra was talking about earlier, where they don't say anything. They just kind of sit there, and and I've seen that, 10 years, right? We've been doing this for 10 years. We've seen that from a bunch of people, and it's hard because you bring on people to participate in the discussion, and then they, some of them, they don't say anything. So it's, on top of trying to keep up with the discussion, you also need to make sure that you're actively trying to bring them into the discussion. And it's a lot of things that go into this that I think people don't even think about.
Right.
I think ultimately, and this is my personal opinion, if you have a group of people who are engaged in a conversation who are constantly accidentally interrupting each other, it's actually a good sign because it means everybody is engaged and has something to say and is passionate about the subject.
Yeah, absolutely. It's when you have that long pause where everyone's just like,
who's going to talk now?
Cricket.
Yeah.
How about law?
For sure, a thing.
Right. And so, on our end, right, I know Zadija talked a little bit about some of the criticism comments. I've seen them too. Like every so often I'll glance at like iTunes reviews, and for whatever reason, I'll go and look at like the older ones sometimes I don't know why, but like some of those are like really, really harsh, but they also, it's one of those things where you need to look at the feedback, and even if it's not, kind of posed in a way that's like friendly criticism, like you have like this super negative sounding comment, but they make a good point.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay,
you have to
I don't like the way you said it, but I like what you said.
Right.
And we can take the feedback and try and make adjustments or whatever like that.
I actually got feedback on one of the first guides that I wrote. The guy sent me an email, and it was mostly like, here are all your grammatical mistakes. And most of them were correct. Some of them were not. Yeah. But there was like no negativity in it. It was just like, hey, liked your guide.
Factual.
Yes, liked your guide. Here's your here's your editing. Like, I am your editor now. This is what you got wrong. And I was like, you know what? Thank you.
That's okay.
Thanks. Sure. Thanks for reading the guide. I hopefully it was helpful too.
Yeah.
That guy, start to finish, read the guide. So at least one person did.
For what it's worth, my wife also enjoyed the guides.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's she's always really hesitant to do any kind of rating or any kind of stuff like that, and so she likes to read up on stuff before, and she definitely found them useful. So there's at least one other person that enjoyed the guide.
I had a handful of people be like, oh, and then I definitely had like friends of friends, my friends who knew and or were helping me make the guides tell their friends who are because my guides were a little bit more casual, but tell their friends who are also more casual to be like, hey, look, are you confused what's going on? Check this out. And then I had a number of people just like the videos that were attached to them. If you guys don't know, I started doing guides for all of the dungeons and Eden Baby.
You also did Orbone.
Yeah, I did the 24-man. That's the one that I got the criticism. Yes. Yeah. So I'm going to be doing guides for, I'll say, the more casual content, aka just not the Savage content. I may break into those, but my group is not cutting edge, so it may be that by the time I get one out for those, they'll be useless. So I'm kind of on the fence with them. Either way, the way that I do the guide is I write it all out because for the most part I prefer a text guide, and then for things that I feel you need a visual for, I'll make an image or I'll take a video of me doing the mechanic correctly. And a number of the things, the one that especially comes to mind is the last boss in Malika's Wells, where you have to dodge the like squares of lasers.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There's like a really easy way. You move like 3 times and avoid all of that.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of likes on that one, so that was pretty cool.
Probably all black mages, yeah. They're all like, oh, okay. I don't even have to think about this.
Yeah, and when we first started talking about guides, the idea of having a text-based guide, but then with video
embeds,
like I thought that was really good because you don't see that anywhere else. Everybody either has it's all video, or that's it. Like there's I've seen maybe
it's
a few
text guides here. It's good to have variety, right?
Yeah.
Because some people are going to prefer video, and some people are going to prefer text, and kind of like me personally, I prefer text, but sometimes you're just like, wow, those words don't make any sense, and then you need the little snippet of video.
Yeah, I mean,
until you actually can experience the different mechanics within a fight, they may not make sense. I'm one of those people that actually has to jump into it and do it first, and then when I'm reading their guides, it makes a little more sense. Or when I'm seeing what's happening, it makes more sense.
Right.
Yeah, and especially with video guides, it's much harder to find what you're looking for. You can't do Control F this mechanic, on a video.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people who do the video guides have started giving you the little breakdowns in the description.
Yeah, and I think
kudos
that's
for
really
that.
needed. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's for me, like if there's one thing I want to know about, I don't want to have to spend 10 minutes clicking that, the thing on the player trying to find where they talk about that one mechanic for, 15 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love the way that we do the guides, and Sinidra's been doing a fantastic job. We'll also have, I know it's a little late, but we will have our guide for Innocence up at some point this coming week as well. Just a heads up
That
on
ain't
that.
me.
Yeah,
Nope.
I was going to say, for me, it's the media tour stuff that we do.
Yeah.
The write-ups after that.
Oh yeah, people love those.
I feel that I feel that I'm pretty funny. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there.
Don't hurt yourself, patting yourself on the back.
Well, no, I'm saying there's a lot of people that disagree, and that's cool. But it's just that type of content doesn't exist either. Like, there's videos about it, but
it's
can't really.
We are definitely a different kind of site / blog / podcast than really anything else that's out there, because when you look at it, especially the media tour, you have streamers and content creators who, for the most part, are video.
Yeah.
Right.
That's their platform.
And so, right. Yeah. That's their thing, is video. They don't have a blog to publish stuff. I can remember during the Stormblood media tour, I had reached out to a lot of those content creators that went, and I was like, hey, I realized that you don't have a blog. If you want to publish your written interviews, you can do it on our site. Like, we'll host them for you. Because not to say that it's a wrong way of doing things, but one of the things personally that drives me crazy is, hey, we interviewed so and so, check out the Google Doc. And it's like, really?
Yeah, I hear you there.
Okay. Or you go to somebody posts a guide on like Reddit or something, and then you can't find it later because it's just been buried on Reddit.
I tell you what, as a content creator, I think one of the most important things that you should look at getting is a website.
Right.
It's not expensive.
Yeah.
I've had the same hosting for probably close to 20 years now. Mm-hmm. And we put our podcast goes up there, as well as, hosted the Pheonix Down Radio website. I had my personal website there for many years. I use it for my email. So it's great. And it doesn't cost much every year. And it gives me somewhere to put articles and things like that. The snippets of, for when we release our podcast, it's not just, here, go check out our podcast. It's out on blah, 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 blah. I can actually link directly to it.
Yeah. And that's one of those things where, if you're looking to get into content creation, right? If you can afford it, right, definitely do it. But if you need to kind of build up to that point as well, that's fine too. And again, it depends on the type of content you're creating. Right. But people need to be able to find your content.
There are free places too, like, we're not talking GeoCities anymore, but there are places you can put up your stuff where it's a little bit more organized than a Google Doc.
But I mean, a domain name is $10 a year.
Yeah, it's super cheap.
And like I said, there's free to cheap hosting solutions where you can put up basic blogs. WordPress is free to use. It's extremely versatile. We use that for our website, and I think you guys use it for a lot of the templates for what you do.
Yeah. Yep.
Like I said, if you ever, and there's a ton of resources available if you want to customize, if you want, to set it up a specific way. And it like I said, it gives you a central location to put all of your social media, all your contact information. You can say, go to our website, pheonixdownradio.com, gamerscape.com, whatever.
Yeah.
So practice. PheonixDownRadio.com.
Right? I've said this before.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a little bit of a long address, but like I said,
And-
what can you do?
Yeah, and
exactly.
it's not it's very similar to what we were talking about earlier when we were saying these programs take a while to learn. Once you have it, you have it. It might take you a while to figure out how to put your website together, but once you have it, you have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I did all of my. I'm gonna date myself here. When I did websites in the past, it was all hard-coded HTML in Notepad.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that anymore.
No, you don't. I'm like, and I didn't. It was like, what?
Yeah.
Learning WordPress was a daunting task for me because it is so much different.
Mhm.
But it was something exciting. I work in technology, and it's something that I've always enjoyed. It's part of the reason why I was a really good fit to do podcasting and web hosting and stuff like that, because it goes with one of my passions. So
Right.
that helps.
I can remember back in the day manually updating our RSS feed.
Yeah, I did that too.
And if you go by and you get a message, hey, the episode isn't up. But I put it, I forgot the semicolon. Whoops. Like, it happened all the time.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, every so often you'd have the 1 week where it's like, all right, the episode's up. No, it's not. Okay. And you're like looking at the code. I don't know what I missed. Like there's an extra bracket. My bad. Like, it's crazy. It was crazy.
And
And we have
it still passes
plugin.
validation too, which is the worst part.
Right.
I don't know what's wrong.
now we have a plugin that takes care of everything.
But then you feel so
Exactly. I
good
love
when
it.
you find the mistake. You're like, ha! Bracket.
Got it.
As a professional programmer, just say it works on my machine. That's all you need to say. You're fine.
You
I don't know
don't
what's
want to
wrong.
see all the dirty looks that I get when I say that to my coworkers.
Yeah, exactly.
Works
Don't
for
ever
me.
My fault.
You tried turning your machine off and on.
That's the number one thing I say at work.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we troubleshoot any when I had my streaming issues a couple weeks ago.
Did you turn
All
your
right,
computer
try,
off?
Restart.
Yeah. Did it
My
work?
friend,
Right.
my
You
friend got a
start.
flat tire the
It's
other day, and somebody goes, "Did you try turning the car off and on?" You know, I did, and it didn't help.
Yeah.
Gold.
Beautiful.
So we talked a little bit about this.
Platforms and
Or-
such.
Our last, we talked about email specifically. But another thing that we want to kind of talk about too is how to engage with the audience. Obviously, this is another thing. Again, dating myself. Back in the day, right? It was emails. It was maybe a forum if you had a website and a forum. But now, I mean, there are social media is so much bigger than it was. We have Twitch now, where if you choose to, you can interact in real time.
I love that.
With-
I love the Twitch chat, and that's part of the reason actually that I don't mind not getting emails so often, because people are directly engaging you in Twitch and making suggestions during the show, and you might not think of something important to the subject you're talking about, and then the audience is like, "Hey, what about?" And you're like, "Yeah!" And then it just makes the show
I forgot
better.
all about that.
Yeah,
Right?
I love it.
It's
great.
beautiful.
So
Thanks, guys.
what's the way, and it again, it varies per content creator, and it depends on the type of content, personality. I mean, it's one of those things where we've acknowledged Twitch chat a few times on the show, but I know at the same time, you don't always want to necessarily like break the fourth wallet, right, or something. Be like, oh, okay, we're gonna pull this right now. It's people can talk, but we want to do the show without interruptions. There are some some content creators that do that kind of setup, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's just how they handle their content creation.
You know
I
what
think
really impresses me is when somebody is in like a savage raid and they take the time to stop and talk to people while they're doing the raid. And I'm just like, how you got that much brain power?
Yeah, I could never do that. It's part of the
I'm
reason why I
concentrating.
can't do Savage Progression when I'm streaming.
Sure.
Yeah.
If I do, I don't pay attention to the chat.
Yeah, and,
Right.
and that wasn't good either. I felt that I want to be interacting with the people who are taking the time to watch me.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. For you guys over at Pheonix Down Radio, what do you have a preferred method of interacting and engaging with your audience? Is it Twitch chat? Is it social? Is it just a little bit of everything? Or
okay. A little bit of the history. We started doing the podcast live on Twitch. So from episode 0, even when we were testing, it was broadcast live on Twitch, and then we would put it up on YouTube and then put the podcast out on our RSS feed. And we wanted to encourage people to, ask us questions within the chat. And we actually do, acknowledge and interact with it on a regular basis as much as possible.
Right.
Because we want we want to encourage people to come check us out live. I mean, we love it when people are downloading it on the podcast, but we want people to feel like they have a say in what we're talking about in each episode. It opens it up. It makes it feel more of a community.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just how we like to roll. I have been on other podcasts where you're recording your audio and then you send it to the person who's going to put it all together.
Right.
They're together. They're they're great. I love working with them. They do a quality show, but they don't do it live. And that they've been doing it that way for 4 years, and that's how they enjoy it, and that's awesome. And then there's others who are, and then there's a mix of in between. You'll do it live, but you try and make it as a podcast episode, standalone.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how we've been doing it. But we try to encourage people to write in. Like I said, we have our email address. We have social media. We try and throw that out there for people, follow us, tweet at us, let us know. Because there's so much that we want to be able to share.
Right.
But we don't know what you guys want to hear unless you tell us.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
everybody's like, yep.
It's like we were saying earlier. It's that they're not saying anything bad, so we must be doing well enough.
But unfortunately, it doesn't. Also, that mentality really doesn't allow you to grow either.
Right.
You kind of hold that line, and you, as a content creator, I want to grow. I want to get our show out there, so more people can listen to it, so we can get a larger audience base, so we can continue to do, bigger, better things. But what those things are yet, we don't know because we haven't encountered it yet. But so
we've been having. Go ahead.
I was going to say, to add to that, I think it's always important to. I don't want to say not be happy with what you're doing, but always look to for areas of improvement. Like I was talking with Zenidro just last night. We still don't have the updated intro, and there's some stuff that we kind of would like to try and maybe set up just to make things a little bit easier for us, kind of behind the scenes. And it's one of these days we'll get around to it, right? But because we're all busy with other things, either real life or making guides or work or and so I think it's always important too to obviously be happy with what you're making, but also as you go along, I think just naturally you'll find areas where you can tweak things and make things better. We talked a little bit about editing a show and how at some point, once you're more familiar with programs or something, you'll find ways to make it easier. You can set up macros or make a script or something that does a lot of the work that would take you 20 minutes normally. Now it's a push of a button. And so it's always important, I think, to to acknowledge and be aware of where you're able to improve, and then
rest on your laurels. Even though you have a show that people are watching, just why not try and improve it?
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need to reach out of your comfort zone.
Right.
Something, and maybe even reach out to people who maybe do something a little bit differently than you to get a fresh perspective. Maybe you're comfortable with what you're doing. Maybe you like how things are going, but there are people out there who want to see it just a little bit different. And if you make a small change where it doesn't impact how much you're enjoying it, it will make people enjoy it that much more.
Yeah. You've got to be willing to actually internalize some of that, criticism that we were talking about, and really filter it and see, all right, does that make sense? Should I try this? That sort of stuff. But then you have to be the self-starter too. You have to, start pushing. It all
comes back to motivation.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, we don't look the same as we did when we started 4 years ago. because if we did, we probably still wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't have very many viewers, things like that. I mean, our look has evolved, logos have evolved, you know, equipment has evolved, and how we look at the content has also evolved, because we're seeing a lot more of what the devs are trying to tell us, you know, even beyond what they actually give us. You know, they leave hints, they leave these little clues, and we now know to try and dig deeper into that, to try and figure out more about what's going on. And, you know, those types of little things make for interesting conversation too.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, one of the biggest things that we do, you know, we have Sarah, who is our resident librarian. Copyright.
That's cute. I love Smish words. It's a good one.
But so, you know, because we want, you know, because there's Ethis and there's Moose, you know, great people within the lore community. We wanted to have somebody who could, you know, give another view on you know, what the world has to offer, where they brought it from. I mean, the real life equivalence of it, and I found that some of that is what people really seem to tune in for. Because they want to know more about why Shiva is the way she is, or where did Ifrit actually come from, things like that.
Yeah, I know. It was just the other week I was looking up Amarut remixes on YouTube. Like, that's my new favorite track is Full Fathom 5, and I was looking up stuff and I realized that there's a song from Shakespeare's The Tempest called Fathom 5. And looking into that a little bit, I'm like, yeah, this is pretty much like loosely, right? This is plot. I can see connections, and it's like, okay.
But that just makes it more rich when you can know why it was there and what they were kind of saying with the words. You know, like it's really awesome.
All deep literature is references.
Yeah, and you have to wonder, you know, how much more of this kind of stuff is there that we haven't picked up on yet, or that
exactly.
If you think about it, Final Fantasy 14 is all really big brain.
Yeah. It's Galaxy Brain.
It's all memes.
Yeah, well, you know, it's one of our I think it was the first interview that we had with Koji Fox. You know, we were like, how do you come up with names for all this stuff? And he's like, if I have a day at work where I know I'm going to be doing like a lot of quests, or, you know, like fates or quest naming, stuff like that, the night before I'll just like go on IMDb and just look around. And
oh man,
my favorite fate is still the 6 Arms one.
I just
died at 6 Arms tonight.
Yeah. That was the one that we he brought up. Yeah.
He is a walking meme, though.
Yeah, he really is.
And we love him for it. He is probably the most beloved person in the dev team, I think. Probably. Aside from Yoshida.
Okay.
Though, because I mean, it's interesting, you know, coming again from an 11 background, right? You spend all this time where it's like, okay, you see Hiromichi Tanaka like at a fan fest, and then maybe every once in a blue moon on like Famitsu or something like that. I mean, this was back in the day when people would like pick up magazines and translate them versus like pulling them off the website. I mean, this is like old school type stuff. But now it's like, I follow Soken on Twitter. Like we've talked on, like
it is a great time to become a content creator, really.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, the ability to find content and things to talk about it's so much simpler. Like I said, with 11, I played 11 since PS2 beta. And I left as soon as 1.0 came out. Sorry, dating myself.
Yeah.
But there was no information. I mean, we had to rely on all of those translations like that, and then go to places like Zam and all those old sites. Goodness. We didn't have the wealth of information available that we have today.
I mean, I still remember going to, it was FanFest, gosh, it probably would have been 2008. That was the last one they had in North America. They did 9 and 10, I think, as Vanafest in Japan. But that was when they announced the, what did they even call them? This like side scenarios.
The like 3 things.
Yeah, the 3 little story add-ons.
Google story.
Yeah, you know, Kubo Ta, Crystalline Prophecy, and Shantoto Ascension.
Yeah, I remember that.
Flip
Wow.
the first two.
Those were some memory banks right there.
Right.
But I can remember they had the Japanese event before the NA one, and I can remember, I remember like doing a sleepover LAN right at a friend's. I had my computer over there. We were like grinding, merit points or whatever during Ottergon times or whatever. And waking up and just seeing little trickles of information, because Twitter kind of was around, but it was nowhere near right as popularized as it is now. And it was like, oh, like they announced a scholar job, or no, that would have been FanFest previous. But just hearing like little trickles of information, and it's like, okay, and then here's these 3 new mini expansions. Okay, cool. Go to FanFest in NA, and they're like, check out these 3 new mini expansions. I'm like, I already know about this. Like, it was so like, I'm just sitting there. I'm like, yeah, I know about this. This is not news. Like, it was kind of like a bummer, right? From like a presentation standpoint. It's like, this isn't, but back in the day, like it was, information wasn't as free flowing as it is today. And so I think that makes things harder to keep up with, but also you still get that point where I know we're definitely guilty of, where you have that content lull, and it's like, what do we talk about? And it's we are a weekly show, right? Finger quotes.
Recently,
aren't watching, right?
For the past
beginning this year, like we want to do this weekly, but there have been weeks where it's like, I don't know what we're going to talk about, so we'll just not do a show, and it sucks, but at the same time, it's hard, it's what is there to talk about? Well, can we get so and so on? No, they're not available this week. Okay. I'm out of ideas then.
I think it's good / fun when you have a variety of knowledge behind your people.
Right.
So like you guys having like a permanent lore person probably expands the ability for you to just come up with stuff every week.
Yeah. I mean,
that helps. Yeah.
Just for one example, but like,
right.
We have to. I mean,
it's weird because it's like the possibilities of this discussion are endless, but we can't think of anything.
Well, you have to really think about the things that you know, right? And self-reflection can be difficult at times. So it's like, what do I actually know about this game?
It's like one of those things where a few weeks ago we were talking about like job changes and all this stuff, and then we get to like talking about tanks, and all of us were like,
The name of that episode is None of Us Are Tanks.
Yeah, none of us are tanks.
How about those tanks, huh?
Yeah.
So I heard actually I got feedback from that on one of the YouTube videos. Who told you that about Warrior? And I'm like, well, some random person. I don't know anything about Warrior. Sorry.
My free company. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I could rant about Summoner for an hour every week, but I don't think it's going to be constructive.
I kind of want to like just make a month now, where it's just Summoner rant month.
Let's not do that.
We'll just.
I hope that next month I won't have to worry about that. That's fine.
We'll make special effects. Get a green screen. We'll just put you like center on a stage, spotlight.
I mean, I do have a green screen. I just never use it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, no, we'll just backdrop for you, and you just
nobody wants
just
to
go full John Madden
out on stage and
exactly.
Just Seinfeld it. So what's the big deal about summoners?
I want to hear him go boom.
It's upside down.
This is the A gap where my dots would be, but they're not. That's my thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
I would totally watch a month of that.
But it's for me at least. I don't know about Fusion, because I have been the one who's been streaming more often and having to come up with more of the outlines and stuff. I have like a list that I've started, and a lot of the stuff on there is like, do people care about this at all? I don't know. I guess we'll see. Yeah. But I mean, it's making my brain work, and I like it.
Yeah, for me, I think one of the especially lately, the thing I've struggled with, it's weird because we have so much more transparency, right, with the dev team and with the, there's so much more information coming out now than there was back in the 11 days. 11 days, I did a weekly show, no problem. I don't know how.
Back when your brain
you
was
had
still
less
youthful.
responsibility.
Yeah.
most likely.
It's just been very interesting personally to see how that's kind of transited. And so lately, I've just been like, I don't know what to talk about, but
I think one of the conversations we had was actually me throwing out ideas, and eventually it just came down to, what do you feel qualified to talk about, Fusion? News. Let's talk about the news. Look, there's news.
Yeah, it's hard. I think it's part burnout, part like, I've come up with a lot of different ideas over the years, but like maybe we didn't get feedback on them, or maybe it was more work involved than we originally thought.
For the longest time, we were just the news show. We'd get together maybe once a month, and we'd talk about the news that was relevant, hopefully over the past week. Sometimes we were like 2 weeks late on the news,
Let's analyze every little thing.
Yeah, so we didn't have to come up with as much content, but when you're doing it more frequently, as I'm sure our lovely guests can tell us, you have to work your mind a little bit more.
Yeah.
And you guys are every 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, we go every 2 weeks because we want to make sure that we can actually have a little bit of a life too.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think I'd be able to get my co-hosts to join me every Saturday night at this point without paying them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But so every 2 weeks, it gives us an opportunity to kind of see what happens within the Final Fantasy world, whether it's 14, because we're getting a lot of news with Final Fantasy 7 remake.
Right.
Then they broke that we've got a release date for the Final Fantasy 8 remaster on PS4, which is very soon.
So excited.
That meme is no longer going to be relevant.
Yeah.
You're the best looking guy here.
Yeah, now he is the best looking guy there.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good. I mean, I'm surprised. So, we gather up all of that, and then it gives us an opportunity to kind of sit, reflect, enjoy the game, and then we come back when the week of the show, and we start to kind of figure out what we're going to talk about. Occasionally, we get ideas like Use and Idra, where we will kind of do a little brainstorming. We'll come up with a few different ideas to kind of have some that we can kind of squirrel away for those slow times. And hopefully they're still relevant.
Yeah.
That's the other hard thing. It's being kind of on top of things. I mean, with the way that we had, I forget, what was the show 2 weeks ago? Because it was right with the live letter, but there was something else we were talking about instead. So that pushed the live letter discussion back a week.
Lore?
Yeah.
Lore, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right, because we, again, scheduling.
Yep.
We were like, all right, we're gonna get Moose on. We're gonna do it this weekend, and it'll be great. We announced it, and then 30 minutes later, he's like, yeah, so I have a family thing. I'm like, oh okay. We'll just go ahead and delete that.
Yeah. Nobody
retweeted it yet. I think we'll be okay. Yeah, it's just one of those things, and I think I've had some times where I'll be busy or I need a break, and Zanidra's been great coming up with ideas, and I'm like, I never would have come up with that. So
you know what? The first time I had to do it was like 2 days before the show. He was like, I have to finish this work that I got. I can't do this. Is there any way that you can do it? And I'm like, who do I ask in 2 days? Who will show up? And I ended up asking my static, and 2 or 3 of them was like, yeah, sure, that we'll help you out. And I'm like, okay, no, what is the show on? Statics. Yeah. We'll talk about statics. Right? We are qualified to talk about that, as we are all in a static.
Yeah, I mean, I remember starting off with 11, and it was me and it was Steak, and we knew each other because we were guests on the first Final Fantasy 11 podcast, and then that went under.
Aww. And
we're like, hey, we should keep this going. So we did our own thing, and then I'm like, we need more people, and so it was. I can't. It's weird because we've had so many people come on as hosts over the years, but and I'm like, I'm trying to think of like how did we even get, like, where did we get them from? Like, one was somebody that I played with on my server, and then they had like somebody that they knew, and that they came on for a while, and then it's crazy how it just kind of works out sometimes.
Right place, right time. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear about how you got the host that you have right now, Foz.
I was actually going to just talk about that.
Yeah, like
'cause as of right now, 4 years later, the only hosts that are still there from the beginning are myself and Sarah.
Yeah.
When we started, I had a real life friend that plays 14, and I wanted her in that. And like I said, I probably wouldn't have started the podcast if she wouldn't have joined in, Luna. And she's an amazing person. I wanted a way to have her, have her voice heard and give her a creative outlet. And also the way when we talk about things, we were able to bounce things off each other. And I thought it made a really nice dynamic for our discussions. And then we had one of our initial starting hosts. He only lasted like 2 episodes. And then we had to bring in somebody else. We had a Black Mage Sayo Mayo join us for a while. And then Chili came on. And he was on there for a very long time. Then our current lineup, it's myself, Sarah, and Talaz Marvelous, our real-life culinarian. So
yeah. And I think, I'm trying to remember, Zanidra, when did you come on? Was that with the RP show?
Yes.
I think it was, yeah, and that was, when did that even start? And
that was before the game was out as well.
Yeah, I remember that.
A friend of mine decided he was going to do the show and posted it up online, and I think Fusion actually randomly tripped over it, and you were like, hey, we're going to do this bunch of different shows, you want to be part of this?
That's
and he
right.
and he was like, okay. So he picked up another guy, and the two of them were like, we should probably have a third person, and they asked somebody else entirely, and that person was like, no, I don't want to, ask her. And that's how I got on that show.
And then we were looking for it was a weird transition of hosts for Aetheryte Radio, because it was 1.0. We got 1.0. Right. The show got 1.0. We had this big plan. It was okay, we're gonna have this big network. We're gonna have we kind of had it run a little bit. I mean, we had a community focused show, we had a topics focused show, we had the role play show. Gosh, we were gonna do an in character role play show at one point. Never happened. It was just like, what? Yeah,
I didn't even hear about that.
We had a Aetheryte video planned at one point. I don't even know what the hell that was going to be, but somebody was like, I'll do video stuff. Great. Okay. And then it just 1.0, and people just kind of just fizzled out. And so
it's really funny if you think about it. The only show that lasted was the RP show. That's because that was the only thing you could do in that game.
Yeah.
I mean, and it fizzled out. At one point, it's like, I don't even remember like who was left from like the old guard, right? Like, at some point, it was just like, okay, we need new people. when
Bren and I joined, because we joined at the same time, it was you and Steak, and that was it. And then shortly after the two of us joined, Steak was like, I don't play, goodbye.
Yeah, he was gone. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Gosh. Yeah. And then we had a few more people. We brought on Syl. Not with us anymore. He does reviews on occasion on the site.
Syl and Charles were at the same time.
And we brought on Aldino. Yeah. And it was, he just like, I know somebody, again, it's one of those like, there's this person I play with, I think they would be great.
What's really funny? I should probably not, this is nepotism. So we went through and we did like our top picks, and the ones that were crossed over made it through to the second round of tryouts, basically. And Charles did not make it through the first round of the tryouts, and I was like, we're gonna take him though. This guy right here, we're gonna. I know that he's not but he is now.
I don't remember any of that.
I don't know. Like I was
totally nepotism. I'm just like, no, this guy, you're overlooking him. He's coming with us.
I was like, I don't remember talking about that at all, but here we are, and it worked out well. So
I was like, I'll apply for it. Cool. I don't know. I've got a really busy job, but it could work.
And now the media tour articles that you have on the site that you wrote for us are like some of the best, like most popular ones. So that worked out well.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Or else I'll keep writing that way. Tell me I'm not funny, please.
I like getting the feedback from those, because people like the charts and the text format where they can quickly refer back to stuff.
Yeah, those took some time, let me tell you.
Yes, they did. But that's what made it worth it. People immediately turned around and were like, "Oh, these are great," and I'm like, "Thank God, I just spent my entire yesterday on this."
That was a huge thing, because we had the full disclosure that I wouldn't say we purposely rushed through them. I mean, we spent time on them, but it was we did the media tour, and then the embargo was what, a week later.
A week, yeah.
But you went to Vegas like the next day for almost that full week.
For a whole week with coworkers.
And I had started kind of getting templates and stuff set up, and it was basically just the three of us one night. We just kind of like, all right, embargo's tomorrow morning. Right? Let's do it. And we just we were on Discord, and we just all the caffeine in the world, and up until God, we finished like what, maybe 2 hours before embargo.
I don't even know how you got through all of those articles, to be quite honest with you.
So because it's kind of a behind the scenes show, so I was wrecked from Vegas. I didn't sleep at all because I was.
I remember him coming on. He's like, "I'm so tired. We have to get this up."
So I stayed up for 40 hours, literally.
Yeah, right. It was 2 days. It was 2 days. Yeah.
40 hours doing it, and then like we finished 2 hours before the deadline, and I finally lied down. And I was like, I haven't been this sleep deprived in a while. This is weird. So I close my eyes and I wake up.
I remember that. You're like, I need a break. And then you just left. And then like an hour later, you're like, I'm back.
It's like, I can't sleep. Did you post it? Oh, it's all posted. Cool. I think I answered a question on Discord, and you're like, you went to sleep. And I'm like, no, I did not. I wish I had.
Like, how are you up right now? Like,
I went to work.
And then
It was good.
It was funny because we did finish so close to right when we could release it. I also passed out, but I stayed asleep like a normal person.
Yeah, I remember that. I'm like looking at the clock. I'm like, I might as well just stay up because I got to post all this.
So I woke up and a bunch of
I was just wondering, what has been like the most fire you've had to deal with in this sort of situation? Pheonix Down. Yeah.
We don't have to really deal with that as much. We don't, because we don't get any of the information prior to embargoes. We rely on you guys for a lot of the information, and so we're reporting on things like that. And when we have information, we're free to post it at that point.
Yeah, that's true.
So until we get to a point where we're able to go to some of the media events and things like that, then we'll start dealing with that aspect of it. But until then, like I said, it's nice kind of being under the radar. So that way we can kind of talk about the things that we really want to talk about without having to worry about, NDA.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to be said about that. I mean, it's, and I guess in that same regard too, what are your, like, what's your policy in regards to like leaks and data mines?
I usually don't touch them because as a player, I like to be surprised by things.
Right.
I like to dig into it and realize it myself. I'm not the person who expects somebody to go into brand new content and say, watch a video.
Yeah.
I want to be, have it, played out in front of me and get that initial rush of what the devs want to deliver to us. And so I'm not one of the people who really enjoys. I used to report on it because I thought it was something to get views, to be 100% honest with you. Because when you're growing, you need to do those things to be able to get those eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, we had some issues very, very, very early on with the good old benchmark data mine incident
So at this point now, like I said, I'm more along the lines of I want people, because I'm a little bit older, a little bit more, relaxed in that. And I want people to enjoy the game. So I'm not going to spread the information, from data miners at this point. I mean, I appreciate what they do because they want to be able to play the game that they want to play. And I just want to play the game that I want to play. What's cool about this game is you can do that.
Yes.
Yeah, and at a certain degree too, it's a little more prominent for us probably, but you also don't want to piss SE off.
Yeah.
Oh, certainly.
I mean, and that is not one of the reasons why we don't do it, because I mean, like I said, I'm not sure that we're 100% noticed. I know they know about us.
Oh, sure, of course.
I learned some information that we can talk about later, but again, I don't want to piss them off.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Because they'll stop inviting you to stuff, and then you don't have that information to share anymore.
Right.
They won't start inviting us.
Yeah, exactly.
I was almost terrorized at how many people leaked stuff before the NDA was lifted.
Right.
Do you want to go back to an event ever again? You're not even, a lot of people weren't even trying to hide the fact that it was them either. They're like, here's this information. It's on my channel. Like, now SE knows what you've done. They're paying attention.
I saw this crazy tweet from a friend of mine who does freelance stuff. He was over at Gamescom this past week.
Yeah.
And his tweet was like, I was in this like closed doors presentation, and this guy takes a video or a picture of the screen. And so, PR walks over. It's like, hey, we can't have pictures. Like, they need to watch you delete it.
Yeah.
As soon as PR walked out, he took another picture.
Yeah.
That's how you get blacklisted.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not worth that one picture is not gonna. It's not gonna make it all better. Like it's it's crazy.
It's kind of insane. Like I allude to sometimes. I work in the industry, not for Square Enix in any way, shape, or form, but some of those things that you'll see, you're like, oh man, God, if that happened to where I work, oh man, that would, like the feeling that you would get. So that's why I hate leaks myself. Yeah. I don't want to deal with them. I don't even want to think about them. I mean, they're cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like if that's what you're looking for, okay, but I just don't want to know.
It's an unfortunate problem that we've created for ourselves, for the fact that we want all this information right now, but we just cannot seem to understand that we have the information, but you need to respect the people who are giving it to you as well.
Right. Mm.
Yeah. You don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah, exactly. That's really it. If you want to continue creating content, you don't do that. You have to have that working relationship with the people
Absolutely.
Who create the thing you're making content about.
Absolutely.
All right, that was all the bullet points we hit. Was there anything else that anybody wanted to add? I know it's a pretty broad topic.
Content creation, it can involve so many different things. You don't have to be just a podcaster. You don't have to be just a YouTuber, a Twitch streamer. You can be somebody who creates beautiful fan art. You can be somebody who creates, there's just a ton of people out there who do icons and buttons and physical products.
Yeah.
There's a crazy market for Crystal X art fan fiction right now.
He's not wrong. But, content creation and fan art and things like that, it's all kind of in the same bubble, and it basically anybody can jump into it. There's no high cost of entry. Mm-hmm. It's just your imagination is the limit. So don't let a lot of the horror stories scare you. If you have an idea that you want to proceed with, give it a try. Reach out to people who do something similar. When we started Pheonix Down Radio, I reached out to Nate. I think I might have reached out to you, Fusion, a number of the other podcasts that I've been listening to, and I asked for advice. How do we start up? What types of things do I need to look for? And Nate was so open and helpful. He's like, do it because you love it. Don't do it because you're going to make a ton of money. Because
you're not.
No, absolutely, you're not. It's
you may end up.
Was it Variety this past week? Some big magazine had Conan on the cover, talking about how learn how Conan broke into this niche market of podcasting and is making it a viable business. And it's like
he had it because he had a ton of people who followed him because he's a celebrity.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's Conan. Anything he's gonna do, he's gonna get a follow. Come
Joe
on.
Rogan, The Rock, all these people who have podcasts now, they have successful podcasts because of their previous ventures. They're actors. They're
marketing it like it's this brand new. Have you guys heard about podcasting? It's been this really niche thing. Now it's this really viable business. No.
Now, I'm an IT technician who, on the side, plays Final Fantasy XIV and podcasts about it every 2 weeks. I'm not getting rich on it.
Yeah, my hair is nowhere near orange enough to be able to get the same kind of...
But you can fix that.
I'm about as tall, but not as funny, though.
I'm just The Rock. I've been hiding it from you guys. I don't know.
I had my suspicions. I appreciate the confirmation.
I thought I could smell what you're cooking.
That's true.
Speaking of that, I'm really excited to see the cooking stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll be watching, listening for that.
Yeah, it's something we're still building up right now.
Yeah.
He's had a couple of times when he's talked, the last one he had, he talked about okonomiyaki.
Oh, yeah.
Because we had just come into the new patch. It was not something that's in the game yet, but because we have to go through all our inventories and clear them out, like in real life, okonomiyaki, something you make with the leftovers when you're clearing stuff out. So it was a really cool way to bring it into the game. So I'm hoping in the future we'll be able to do, maybe some videos with it or something like that. I mean, we have all these ideas that we want to bring in, but it's all about.
That's something I was interested in doing previously, but I'm not really, I'm not passionate about cooking. It was just sort of something I thought could be interesting if you try and actually make the recipes in the game with just the stuff they tell you to use. I don't think you'd be able to make any of the food.
No, I know there have been people who have tried it,
right?
But they end up having to do a few other things to make it actually a viable product. But
I mean,
the people who do it, it's a beautiful job, and I think they do amazing work.
Yeah,
that's another thing. It's there's a lot of ideas out there. Like, there's been a lot of ideas that I've had, and it's like, okay, I have this great idea, but I don't think I can execute it. I don't have anybody here that can execute it, so I guess we just can't do it. And then it goes, falls to the wayside and gets forget. I could, not to try and claim credit, right? But I can remember years and years ago, once 2.0 launched, and I'm like, once we started to do a little bit more of the live show thing, I'm like, we could podcast from inside somebody's house or something. Like, that could be a thing. And then some other show did it, and I was like, oh, all right, well, I guess that's not my idea anymore because I didn't do it. It's that weird thing of if you have an idea that somebody's not doing and you want to do it, you need to act on it just quick in this day, because if you don't, somebody else will, and then they'll get that audience or that, whatever for it.
But it's like we said earlier, even if somebody else is doing something that you want to do, don't be afraid to do it.
Yeah, we do it. We've got a few sets that we broadcast from in game. So I mean, everything, our podcast, if you watch it live or on YouTube, it's all done from either our free company house or my personal house, or sometimes depending on the what we're talking about, we'll go on site, to a location in the game. Like, we'll go to Costa del Sol, or I remember one we did it in Kurthus, just because that's what we were talking about.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of shows that have done it. So it's it's just, it's one of those things where don't be afraid.
You know what?
That you're. Go ahead.
Something that we should bring up. So finish your thought, and then I'll get with mine.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's, you don't want to be accused of copying somebody. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's one of those things where it's like the possibilities are infinite. But there's this set amount of ideas that a lot of people are going to have and use, regardless of that.
Nothing is original.
Infinite. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So the thing that I wanted to bring up very quickly is being jealous. Being jealous of other content creators.
Yes.
You see somebody who's doing something that maybe you've already started, and you think maybe they're doing it better. Or somebody who's doing the exact same thing that you do, and maybe you think you're doing it better, but they have more followers or something.
Yeah.
I feel like people, I can't say that the majority of the community is prone to jealousy, because I don't think that's true. But people, as a humanity, is prone to jealousy. So just sort of check yourself in that regard. Don't let yourself be jealous of what someone else is doing, because it's only going to stress you out. It's going to reflect in the content that you do, and it's going to make your content bitter, and that's not going to be good for your audience. They're not going to like what you're doing. So just chill out. Don't worry about what someone else is doing. Focus on what you're doing, and try and make a good time out of it.
And to add to that, maybe reach out to some of those other content creators, like what you guys did with me. I mean, we've reached out to many other content creators to have them on, to get their opinions, get their thoughts. It's not only to, enhance our audience, but we have that evil little idea. We want to grow our audience.
Right.
And we're going to try and draw some of their people to us. I know, it's a diabolical thought.
People can watch multiple things. Gasp. People can like multiple similar things.
We're going to steal all of your viewers. Wah!
So really, it's not worth it.
Yeah, and on that note too, one of the things that, I think a lot of people don't realize is we all talk to each other. Yeah. You know what I mean? In some regard, it's not like we're, not necessarily every day we're like, hey, how's your day? Every so often, we'll chat with each other and stuff like that. And so, one of the things that isn't needed necessarily, but that I like to try and avoid. Like right now, we go live at noon. Frosty goes live at I think 1 or 2 now, and it was kind of one of those things where once we decided we were going to go weekly, like almost like the same day, he's like, all right, like my schedule changed, and now we're going to be going live like an hour or 2 after you guys are, which is going to bump a little bit, right? And it's like, we never really talked about it, but we tried to avoid overlap.
Mm-hmm.
But now we do. Like I got the notification on my screen. It's like, oh, Frosty went live. So, oh, okay, great. And it's one of those things where whatever. Like if people want to go to his show, great, do it. I think they're talking about tanking today. You know what I mean?
And the thing about that's hilarious. But the thing about Twitch is, it's recorded for a long time. Yeah. You can watch both. It may not be live.
You can download it later. I mean, you probably. I don't know if he's still. He was doing giveaways. I don't know if he's still doing giveaways. We're doing giveaways, so stick around. It's always good to talk to other content creators, even if you're not necessarily collabing all the time, right? But it's good to just know who else is part of that community, and to be able to reach out and either ask for advice or to do a collaboration or something like that. Or find a guest. Yeah, I mean it's definitely a huge asset. So if that's something that you are interested in, I mean definitely reach out. And I most people, as far as I know, including myself, like if you have questions or something,
answer them.
Ask.
Yeah, I mean, we want to write you back. We want to help you guys out. I mean, we're almost begging.
Please.
But so yeah, there you go.
TLDR, chill out, make friends.
There you go. That works.
And if you want to get into content creation, especially if you're looking to get your foot in the door for maybe some writing or podcasting, we have some positions available at Gamerscape. Gamerscape.com.
For the third time. That's actually the name of the episode now. But we're hiring.
Also, if you want to do your own thing, do your own thing. That's fine.
Yeah.
But,
that's fine too.
But we are looking for people. All right. So we'll have our giveaways here after we end the show, since they'll take a little bit of time and we don't want to include them in the actual episode. We'll make editing a little easier because that's the thing we talked about. We want to do that.
Yes.
So if you want to email us, you can email us at Aetheryte Gamerscape.com. You can tweet at us at Aetheryte Radio. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Discord at Gamerscape. We also did a little bit of Discord reorganizing this past week. We have a social channel now for general things, and then we have a separate Final Fantasy XIV general chat now. So keep an eye out.
We also have an Aetheryte Radio channel. Just saying.
Yeah, sure.
So make sure to double check which channel you're on the server before you start talking about stuff. You might be on the wrong one. And that's going to do it here for Aetheryte Radio. Next week, we have our interview with Natsuko Ichikawa and Takeo Suzuki. So make sure to come back and check that out. And that'll do it. See you later.